Hello everybody and welcome to the British Pint. My name is Christoph and today we're tasting the really great Young's Winter Warmer clone that I did, which is much more accurate than the one I did a few years ago, where I used dark invert sugar, and this time I used a mixture of high dextrin glucose syrup and molasses in the form of Lyle's Black Treacle. So just a few details. This has been in the carton, in the bag and box now for 2 weeks. Almost clear, just very slight chill haze, which would take a bit longer to drop out, I guess. Medium foam stability might improve a bit more in the future. It doesn't have any roasted malt in it, so it doesn't need to be that. There's nothing in there that keeps the foam stable for really long. So color is a bit paler than I would have wanted, but so there are two choices that I have. Either I go higher with the amount of black treacle, 6% in this case, or which is more likely, they use caramel as well in their mixture, so probably just add some color in it and it makes it look darker. I also very recently learned that Young's uses a very pale crystal malt, so something that has 40 to 50 EBC and not what I would expect Crystal 150. So that is something I might experiment with in the future. There was a recent publication from Ron Pattinson with Young's Party Guide. Young's Ordinary Bitter, Young's Special and a few other beers were apparently Party Guide. I didn't know that. So my Young's Special recipe that I once published is also out of date now because you have to Party Guide the whole thing. I might do that in the future. So for this one, darker crystal than originally intended and maybe not enough molasses or just not enough coloring. I do have coloring, but I just don't see the point in just putting coloring in here to get a different color. Yeah, I'm happy with the clarity for 2 weeks. That's really nice. I can see the bubbles on the other side of the glass, so that's really nice. Yeah, carbonation is a tad too high. I think I transferred it a bit too early. Added very little sugar, so nothing blew up or anything. But I noticed that the yeast that I harvested also created some CO2. The progress was really slow towards the end, so maybe I was just a bit too quick there. Normally I would expect the yeast to be quick with the maltotriose, but for some reason it didn't want to really go at it this time. Who knows? Yeah, that's pretty much everything you need to know. I got 76% attenuation for this one. The old one with the dark invert sugar, which was far too well fermenting, was 84%, so that's way more than you want. Ideally I wanted to have 70%, and I think the reason why that didn't work is that there are still too many fermentables in there. The syrup that I used is more 50 dextrose equivalents and I would need something around 40, and then the black treacle, which is a mixture of golden syrup and molasses, is also too fermentable. So there's still some room for improvement in the future, which I might do eventually. It might be just much easier to just add a bit of black treacle and just mash it very high, ignore all the glucose syrup and all this stuff, just to get that high amount of body. So let's see what we smell. Yeah, very faint hop aroma that I notice. Also a bit of maltiness. The thing is, when you put this through a sparkler, which I did this time, and the foam is stabilizing now, so I think it was the high carbonation that was fizzing a lot in the beginning, and now everything is slowed down. But this very thick foam blocks out quite a lot of the aromas, so it's a bit difficult to get them out there. Yeah, I don't think I smell any molasses, but it does definitely have a rich malt smell. Not too much aroma hopping. I think there was East Kent Golding there in the last 10 minutes, so very classical British recipe regarding the hopping. Mouth feels great as always, but it does feel a bit thicker, definitely compared to my other beers. Usually I get around 80% attenuation in standard British beers, and 76 is already a bit better and it's noticeable. It does have a slightly sharp flavor, which I can't really attribute to anything. Okay, I think I'm noticing very little bit of the molasses here. And now I understand this sharp bit is actually the licorice flavor from the molasses, which was overpowering with the pure molasses that I used for Theakston Old Peculiar clone back in the days when I was Still thinking that that one was done with molasses. It isn't nowadays, it might have been in the past. So there is a bit of licorice sharpness in it, and if you take a little sip, that's the only thing you notice. If you take a big sip, you notice more fruit aroma. So the question is now, could I increase the molasses content for next time without getting any more sharpness? And luckily, the next beer that we're going to brew is going to contain 10% of black treacle, so you will have to look out for that one. Also, that one is going to be a fabulous brew, which for just a coincidence, I'm going to publish on 1st of April. But we'll see how that one comes along. Now, the Young's Winter Warmer, I'm not overwhelmed because the body is not enough. You need a lot of body. 70% attenuation is just really low. And they don't do that with a maltotriose weak yeast, which would be the easy way to do it. They're doing that with a house yeast, for which I used Y yeast 1768. And that really attenuates a lot if it can. So you just need to create a lot of dextrins. And I think mashing at 70 degrees might be just much easier than using all this glucose stuff. Yeah, I'll take one more sip and then we'll see how... if I notice anything new. Yeah, it does have a very complex fruitiness to it. And with a really big sip, you notice that it's the molasses. So you get something that is really close to dark plum. Not dark plum, dried plum. Other dark fruits, that's where I was coming from. A bit of dried cherry as well, yeah. So some dried fruits that are in there, the darker, richer ones. It's very nicely underlying and supporting the rest, but I think it's just not enough. I might have to do a third clone in the future. That would be my summary for now. Not sure if I take a picture of this one as the thumbnail, if people are going to recognize it, because it needs to be much darker. But as I said, I can just drop a drop of coloring and that's it. Alright, so I'll see you next time for that really special brew. Make sure you don't miss that. I'm going to have the brew day and the tasting in one video, to maximize the amount of things that people see. Usually the tastings get a lot less views than the brew days. Alright, see you next time. Until then, take care.